Fox News is known for its biased reporting on video games. Numerous times on the show, either Fox News anchors or their guests, such as Jack Thompson, have attacked video games and the Entertainment Software Ratings Board, or ESRB. During these attacks, they clearly show that they have no idea how video games work or how the ESRB works. First, I'll be commenting on an episode of Red Eye, where they discuss whether they think video games should be banned or not.
Should the government have control over controllers and say no way to GTA?
Oh yeah, I'm sure that joke's about to go down in history.
FYI, the lower court rejected arguments that virtual violence leads to real-life mayhem.
Okay, well, good for them.
And as always, for a different perspective, we go to Captain Hardshell aboard his Star Cruiser.
Yeah, and what was the point of that? If I was gonna rip off the nostalgia critic, I'd call that a big-lipped alligator moment. Sorry for that pointless interruption. Now we shall return to our normal program.
If you really look at it, what's really funny is that because the Supreme Court's looking into this, that means that Ruth Bader Ginsburg actually has to sit down and play Gears of War 2.
Yeah.
I actually have to give him that one. It's kind of funny to think of the Supreme Court justices sitting around playing Gears of War and Grand Theft Auto all day.
If you can rate movies with an R and not let kids in, why can't you? I don't understand how you can let kids see some of this stuff.
Well, actually, video games are rated in exactly the same way. An M rating for a video game is exactly the same as an R rating for a movie.
You're going to a PG-13 movie, you have to bring your parent with you.
Yeah.
So why not, bring your parent to the store to buy that violent video game?
Yeah, clearly these guys have never bought a video game in their life. If they had even just walked into a GameStop or done any basic research before shooting the show, they would know that to buy a game from GameStop or anywhere else, if it's rated M, you have to present some form of ID, such as a driver's license, before you buy the game. And there's absolutely no excuse for this, because the video that I took this footage from is only from April 2010, and I'm making this video, this commentary, in July 2010. So it's not like any new laws have been passed since this show aired on Fox News.
I am not for censoring these things.
Really?
I don't think you should ban the sale of these violent video games to minors. I think we need to restore responsibility to parents. Parents should be deciding.
Wow, I mean, what can I say? That lady was actually pretty reasonable about it. What just cracks me up, though, was the reaction of the host. As soon as she said that she wasn't for censoring something, the host was like, "Really? What a novel idea, making the parents responsible for what their kids do? Man, who's ever heard of that idea before?"
If this is happening with video games, what's to say that they won't overturn the entire MPAA movie ratings board?
Okay, when I first heard this one, I had to step away from my computer for about 10 minutes just to try to comprehend the sheer foolishness of that statement. How on earth could anyone think that video games are going to somehow cause movies to not have ratings anymore? I mean, movies have had ratings for ages. In fact, the exact opposite happened. Games didn't cause movie ratings to exist, the opposite happened. Movies had ratings, and then eventually, due to pressure, video games adopted ratings. There's no way that the opposite would ever happen. One of the more well-known controversies about how Fox News reports on video games was based around the video game on the Xbox called Mass Effect. Here's what they had to say about it.
New role-playing video game that is leaving nothing to the imagination. Mass Effect is what it's called. It's made for Microsoft's Xbox system, and it features in some parts of this, you'll see full digital nudity. Imagine. And the ability for the players to engage in graphic sex.
Now, the two main points of what she said is that the game features full nudity and graphic sex. Now, these things come up later in the interview, and I'll address them then.
Cooper Lawrence is a psychology specialist, radio talk show host, and the author of the new book, The Cult of Perfection. And Jeff Keighley is a game expert with Spike TV. Welcome to both of you.
There are two things that I noticed here. First of all, in the beginning of that clip, you can see that Fox News refers to a sex box. That seems to be pretty biased reporting there, if you ask me. But besides that, having a representative from Spike TV doesn't exactly seem like the best person to represent video games.
I mean, let's talk about who the video game is for. It might be for adults, but if you look at the statistics, who's playing video games but adolescent males, not their dads?
Now, I did some research and I found out that she's actually completely incorrect. The average gamer is not actually a teenage male like most people stereotype gamers as being, but the average gamer is really a male in his 30s.
Damage is this. We know that all the research shows that violence has a desensitizing effect. Well, sexuality does too.
No, not all of the research shows that. The research is very contradictory. Some of the research shows that video games actually can make people more violent, but about half of it shows that video games have no effect whatsoever on people, but there is no consensus.
Cooper, have you ever played Mass Effect?
No.
Right. Well, I think the fact is you talked about, another thing that you mentioned is that how it's, has full graphic nudity. That's completely incorrect.
I love how the lady that he's debating laughs at the beginning of that clip when he asks if she has actually played the game. I mean, shouldn't she at least have played the part of the game she's talking about, if not the entire game? And she doesn't even take that question seriously, even though it's a very valid point. She just laughs at him. But also, he also brings up a good point when he says that there isn't actually full nudity in the game. While there is some partial nudity in the game, it's nothing that you couldn't see in an R-rated movie.
And it doesn't force you down any situation. You can actually play through this game without the sexual situation ever happening.
Right, and the young boys
game.
are going to be choosing not to have sex. That'll be what they'll choose. I mean, let's be realistic
it's not a simple choice, but Cooper, it's not a simple choice. You don't turn to the game and says, would you like to have sex or not?
Now, of course, he is completely correct. The game does not force you into this encounter, and also, it is not that easy to follow the relationship path to this event, because you have to first of all keep the person alive, second of all actually take the time in the game to develop a relationship with them. So that makes it rather unlikely that a normal player will even encounter this, and you can completely choose to avoid it, which is a pretty valid point.
Darlin, I gotta go with the research. And the research says there's a new study out of University of Maryland right now that says that boys that play video games cannot tell the difference between what they're seeing in a video game in the real world if they don't have a real experience.
All right, Jeff.
Now, I'm not sure why that lady specifically said that it affects boys, not just gamers, but either way, just like the studies on violence, all of the research on this is actually very contradictory, with some saying that video games do have an effect, and others saying that it has no effect.
A lot of grown men that love video games, let's be honest here. But once it's in the house, we live in a day and age where our children are not always supervised. Kids let themselves in after school, they have time. What do you think a young boy's going to do? I want to play my dad's video game while he's not here. And I think that's dangerous. We really have to watch this.
Now, she brought up a semi-valid point, but I feel that it's definitely overkill to ban a game just because there's a potential that kids could see it. Like Microsoft earlier brought up, there are parental controls on game consoles, and really it's up to parents to watch what their kids play. A game shouldn't be banned just because a child might see it.
I'm not sure why it didn't get an adults-only rating. That's the highest rating that it can have. So first of all, this board that rates them needs to have their head examined.
I actually completely agree with the way the ESRB rated this game. First of all, the adults-only rating is actually incredibly restrictive and rare, and it's almost the equivalent of banning a game in the US. Aside from that, an M rating is the equivalent to an R rating for a movie. And there are plenty of movies like Braveheart comes to mind that are rated R that have partial nudity, just like this game. Also, the violence is definitely less than Braveheart, so if Braveheart can get an R rating, which is 17 and up, why can't a video game get an M rating for the same type of stuff? There shouldn't be a double standard, and the ESRB is completely correct.
And this made me feel old watching this. What happened to Atari and pinball?
I'm actually going to seriously answer her question. Atari started making a whole bunch of bad consoles, and so after losing millions upon millions of dollars, they decided to stop doing that, and then for some reason they also stopped making any good games. So they'll probably just die a slow death of bankruptcy. But really, is she really being surprised that video games have moved and changed in the past 20 years? I mean, everything has. TV, the internet. What's so surprising about that?